So what is Keycloak? Keycloak is an open source software product to allow single sign-on with identity and access management aimed at modern applications and services. So essentially, it's a tool used for users to manage users and manage user logins. And you can see down here, this is what that screen looks like. You're probably asking yourselves, why should you use it with FileMaker? And there are a number of reasons for it, and I listed 3 pretty big reasons right here. It allows you to manage users from outside of FileMaker and through sources other than the 3 that we've heard all about, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. It allows you to have 2-factor authentication outside of FileMaker for your FileMaker applications. And it allows you to manage users in FileMaker based on groups instead of the individual users. As you all know, with the inherent FileMaker user setup, you can't have, you have to actually add each individual user as an account in FileMaker. Using this tool, it'll allow you to add groups into FileMaker, and then you can manage the users outside of FileMaker in Keycloak, and you don't have to really go into the manage security section of FileMaker, which could be a really big bonus if you have large user groups. What do you need to use Keycloak? So the first thing you need is FileMaker Server. It's not available. FileMaker Cloud does not offer external authentication, so it's just a FileMaker Server tool for now. You need a Ubuntu Linux server, which is what Keycloak will live on, and then you need a subdomain from a DNS server. You basically need a domain name for your Keycloak server, and the one we're using is called oauth.keylogic.com, and this is kind of what you would do on your wherever you manage your domain.
Hey,
DNS,
pardon. Could you repeat that? I didn't quite catch that.
Hey, Tyson, can you not interrupt the damn meeting? Holy shit! Can't you see he's trying to present? God damn it!
All right, I think we have a couple of what's it called?
No, I apologize. I shouldn't have.
I think we got what's it called? We got Zoom bombed. All right. So, any questions so far? Nope. All right. Move on. All right. How do I create a Keycloak server? So, first thing you would do is you would create a Ubuntu server, and then you'd follow Duncan Baker's instructions. He actually wrote a really solid instruction sheet, and I'm actually going to include that link in here so that you all can see it. And if you want to view it, I'll put it in the chat. There we go. And so if you actually go to that page, and I'm gonna sorry, I just skipped to where I want to be. I'm actually going to show that page in here. So this is the page that I just sent. And when you go in here, you'll see he has a pretty long write-up of instructions. Make sure when you come in here, you skip here and go straight to the Keycloak 17 instructions. One, they're a lot shorter. There are only 4 parts. And the installing an SSL certificate part of this setup will not work with the newest version of Ubuntu. So that's a big, just make sure you follow the 17 instructions. And if you guys would like in a future CFDG, I'd be happy to actually do this process with you guys, so you can see it from start to finish of actually creating the Ubuntu server. Going back to our presentation. Like I said, and you want to follow those instruction parts 1 through 4. So now, how do you configure Keycloak? So assuming that you've gone through the process of launching the Ubuntu server, following Duncan's instructions for following Duncan's instructions for installing Keycloak on the Ubuntu server. Now you have the Ubuntu server and you're ready to actually configure it to have it be ready to be used in a live environment. And that's what I'm actually going to walk you guys through today. And I believe in the chat, I actually sent you guys the instructions that we're going to follow right now. The other instructions I'm going to include here, and this is for the parts 1 through 4. So following these, so if we open this page, which I'm actually going to leave the presentation and we'll just go onto their website. These are their Duncan Baker's instructions from Sounds Essentials. He did a really great job of giving you really step-by-step instructions on how to create a Keycloak server. And before we get started, I want to bring up some definitions that'll be important for when we get in there, so you guys can see what I'm you guys can understand what I'm talking about. So a realm in Keycloak is what you would consider your company or organization. So for example, if I was managing, several different clients' different Keycloak accounts, each client would have their own quote unquote realm. And I'll show that to you guys a little bit later. Your clients, you would consider to be each FileMaker server. So if, you have AT&T as a client and they have, a server in Las Vegas and another server in Boston, then each of those servers would have its own quote unquote client. Client scope is kind of a grouping of information about users that's passed back and forth between the server and the Keycloak. Your groups, which we talked about a little bit more, is your ability to categorize users.
Fuck you! Literally, fuck you! Fuck you, bitch!
Wow. Apologize for that. Looks like we have to change our link for next time, so we don't get any more of these people showing up. All right, so a group is a collection, categorization of users. Now, you're allowed to have multiple users or multiple groups for a single user. So I can be both an administrator, developer, an employee. I can be multiple things in one. And I'll show all that to you guys later. And obviously a user is a user. So let's go and actually look at Ubuntu. This, when you get the Ubuntu server set up, this is the screen that you'll see, and then you'll be able to access the console here, which will take you to a login screen. This is the administrator side of things, and I'm using a tool called Google Authenticator to authenticate myself. So I'm going to go and put that number in. And now you can see I'm in Keycloak. So I've already created a realm for Keylogic that we're actually using in our live environment. And it automatically comes with a realm called master, which I think you can delete, but I haven't. We're going to go ahead and add a new realm. So I'm going to click this add realm button. We're going to call this realm the CFDG. And we're going to create it. And now I'm literally just going to be following these instructions here. So you can follow along if you want to, just scrolling through these instructions and follow me as I go. So we have the name of CFDG. We're going to call the display name CFDG as well. We are going to turn user managed access on, click save. I'm going to go into login and select that we want to allow for forgotten passwords, save that. And then I'm going to go into email and I'm going to set up Keyologic's email relay server, which will be important later on. I think that's good enough. And I'm going to go into security defenses and add brute force detection, which when you select it on, it actually gives you a number of options. And so, brute force is if somebody goes in and just hammers your server and is trying to log in with a bunch of different accounts and passwords and such. So their default is allowing them 30 failures. I would probably put this lower, like 5. After you fail to log in 5 times, you should probably get kicked out. Then you can set your wait increments, your login. I'm not even sure what that is. Your max wait time, which is 15 minutes, which means pretty much every time that you fail after the 5th, it's going to increment 1 minute until you get to 15 minutes, and then it's going to make you wait 15 minutes. Another area in here that they don't go into in their discussion in their instructions, but this is an important area, is this token section. This is where you would set how long sessions last. So when somebody logs in to a Keycloak account, through FileMaker, how long before the next time that they log into FileMaker, will it remember their Keycloak account, or will it force them to re-log in? And so this is where you would set all of those details. And I haven't gotten too deeply into this to know there's a lot of different options, and a lot of them to me feel like the same thing. So I have to spend some more time in here understanding, all right, what is what, to give a good recommendation of what we should do. Any questions so far? All right. So now we're going to go into the client section, and we're going to add a server. So it comes with a number of different clients in here. You don't have to touch any of them. We're just going to create a new one. I'm going to call the client ID FileMaker server. The client protocol is going to stay the same, and the root URL. Then once we come in here, we can call the name FileMaker server. You can add a description if you want. I'm not going to. We want to set client access type to confidential. And then we want to add a validation redirect URI, which you would get if you go into your FileMaker server, server. So I'm going to open up my server right now so I can show you. So if you open up FileMaker server, and you go to external authentication, and you just click here, it'll tell you what your redirect URI should be, and you just have to change your domain to whatever the domain of your server is. So we're using, dev.keylogic.com. So you would copy this, paste it in here, and change it to dev.keylogic.com. And there we go. So let me just make sure I got all the steps. Did. Then go and save that. So now, if you look in credentials, now you'll see you have a client secret. There are some other items in here. We'll get back to some of these, but to start, that's all you need to do in the client section. So now we're going to go to client scopes. Again, you'll see a number of these different options, and we're going to create one for groups. We're going to call it groups. You can give it a description if you want. I'm not going to. We're going to remove this display on consent screen. Click save. In mappers, we're going to create a mapper and call that groups. And we're going to set that to group membership. And token claim is going to be groups. And then we're going to turn full group path and add to access token off. Save that. Now, I think we go back to clients. We're going to go find that client that we just created and go to client scopes. We're going to move groups in and take roles out. All right, so now we've successfully created our realm. We've successfully created our clients. Now we're going to create our groups. So I'm going to go into groups, and this is very easy. We're going to create our groups. I'm going to have one for administrators, and that's all you have to do. Another group for our developers, and then another group for our users, and then finally a group for all of our employees. And that's all you have to do in groups to create them. Finally, we're going to go and we're going to add users. So I'm going to add myself. I'm going to make the username Justin Hesser, justin@keylogic.com. I'm going to add myself, and here's where you add yourself to a group. So I'm going to add myself to, I'm going to be an administrator, I'm going to be a developer, and I'm going to be an employee. I'm not a user. In this required user action section, here's where you can define some required things. So configure OTP is pretty much what allows you to do two-factor authentication using a, I can't remember what an OTP is, what the term is, but it's using like Google Authenticator or Authenticator, using some type of authenticating source. Require updating of a password, and I'm going to require that Justin verifies his email. Save that. Then I'm going to go into credentials, and I'm just going to create a temporary password for me for now. And you mark it as temporary, and when I first log in, I'll have to go in and change that. So you can see in groups, I'm in these groups. These other groups are available. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to add one more user, and I'm going to add Derek in here. and I'm going to add Derek as a user and an employee because Derek's not a developer and he's not an admin. So I just want him to be a basic user in our database. And I'm going to require him to do the same thing, configure OTP, update his password, and verify his email. I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to create credentials of, just going to create temporary credentials for him. Set that. Can't remember if I saved the setting of the credentials for these. I did not. All right, so now we're officially ready, and you would go through this process and add all of your users into Keycloak that you wanted, and you would go ahead and add all the users that you want, add them to your groups, and you're good. Your Keycloak is set up. Now is the next step, which is we're done with Keycloak. How do we make this work in FileMaker? I'm going to share right now instructions on installing the FileMaker, and for whatever reason, it is so you should have received the message there. And so if we go to that page, it's going to give us instructions on installing Keycloak into FileMaker. And actually, I got the wrong link. Here we go. This is the one. So this is authenticating Keycloak into FileMaker. So where do you start? So actually, the first thing I like to do before even going into the admin console to set things up is to go into the databases and prepare them for the setup, because once you start using external authentication with the database, some things change in it. And I'll show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go to our little test database that we're using. And I'm going to log in. And one thing I like to do is go into file options, and check this show sign-in fields, even when OAuth or ADFS is enabled. If you don't check that, then when you attempt to log into that file, when you open the file, it's not going to give you the default FileMaker login options. It's only going to give you the external authentication options. So I like doing this to start, and then once all my users are comfortable and ready to go, then I'll uncheck this in the file. So I've got that set up. And then I also like to just go ahead and set up the managed security section for the external authentication ahead of time. I find it's easier to do it before as opposed to after. So I'm going to come in here, and you can see I selected Custom OAuth, and that is a new option. I think it came out in 19.4, but it might have been 19.3. I'm not sure. And I'm going to create our different accounts. So the first thing is I want to add groups and not users. So the first group is going to be administrators. And this, I want the group name to match the group name that I had in Keycloak. That's very important. If it doesn't match, it won't find it. So I have my administrators group. I have my developers group. My administrator and my developers are going to be full access. I have my users group. That's going to be data entry only. And then I'm going to say anybody who's an employee, they just get read-only access. And that way I'll cover if they're not in any of these other groups. Everybody on my team I'm going to put as an employee. That way, at the very least, they can get in as a read-only. Click OK, save that. Now we're good to go. So now we're going to go into the admin console. And we went to administrator and external authentication. And we're going to select, obviously, your custom OAuth option. And we're going to fill out all of these different options. So the first one is your custom IDP name. This is, you can actually put anything you want here. Keep in mind that it doesn't read long words, or actually it won't allow you to include a space or some special characters in it, and it won't read long words well. It'll give you like a ... So I like to use something simple. I'm just going to use the word login, and you'll see why in a second. Your client ID you can find in Keycloak, and I'm actually going to side by side this and Keycloak so that we can just go back and forth. So your client ID is pretty simple. It's right here, client ID. I'm gonna copy this. Your client secret is in this credentials section, so we're going to copy that. Now, your authorization code endpoint you'll find by going to the realm and then clicking this OpenID endpoint configurations. And it'll give you this big piece of JSON code. We only need a couple of things in here. So the authorization endpoint, we're going to take from here. The token endpoint, we're going to take from here. And these all these instructions are directly on that page. And the profile endpoint, we're going to take from here. Now, your custom IDP icon endpoint is the icon that you want to show in that button. And so I'm actually going to use, I have a copy of our CFDG logo. And so I'm going to use that, the location of it. Your account schema is going to be email. Your group schema is going to be groups, and your scope is open ID, email, groups. And we want to select Open IDP Connect. We're going to save this, and then we're going to go down to database sign-in and turn external server accounts on. You can see it, this login one, we're going to turn this on. And again, you can call this whatever you want, and you'll see where in a second. So now we're ready to go. So now let's open up that FileMaker database again. Now you can see, it didn't take my logo. I have to check out the logo, but now you can see you have an ability to log in with your FileMaker account because we had that checked, or sign in through Keycloak. And we're going to choose the Keycloak route. So I'm going to click that, and it opened up a login page in Keycloak. And so I'm going to log in with, where did we go? I'm going to log in with the username and password that was given to me. And sign in. And you can see it takes you straight here to the mobile authenticator setup. The reason why I'm coming here and it's taking me here is because when I was setting up the user, and let's get back to Keycloak. When I was setting up the user, I said it's requiring to configure ODP. So I have on my phone the Google Authenticator app, which is what I use. It's a free app. I'm just going to add this to it. I'm going to scan the code and enter it in here. And call this and it went. So now I can create a new password. I'm going to create a new password for myself. And submit that. And now it's going to this next step, which is to verify my email, because I selected verify email here. So if I open up my my emails, I'll find one from the Keycloak server, and so somebody has created a CFTG account for you, and I'm going to click this link to verify. And now it logged me into the file. This is a one-time thing. You only have to verify one time. Now I'm going to show you guys a little bit later how to connect using an identity provider like Google, and show you why you would need to do that. When I do that, it's going to require me to verify my email again, because it's considering it as a different login. So you'll see that process as well. So now I'm in the database. I'm logged in as a Keycloak user. Now, if you look at some kind of important piece of information, especially if you have an application where you're tracking people as they log in, or maybe you have a user table inside the database and you need to match the user based on the account name or the account type. If you do get account name, it's going to be the email address. It doesn't matter what you logged into when you logged in through Keycloak, it's always going to take the email address of the user. So keep that in mind. The other one that I wanted to show you is the privilege set. Because I am a administrator, it logged me in as full access, and you can see the account group name is going to be administrators, and then finally the account type is going to say Custom OAuth. Now, and so these are important things. I built in my apps to say if get account name, get account type equals Custom OAuth, then do these things. Otherwise, do these things, assuming the person logged in using regular FileMaker. Now, in managed security, it's important to keep in mind that the login process works the same way as with FileMaker logins, where it goes top down. And the first login that it finds that matches is the one that it'll catch for you. So I set myself up as an administrator, a developer, and an employee. If I were to, for example, move developers up to the top, then if I were to log in again, and this doesn't count, but if I were to do a new login, you can see now, because it remembered me and it hasn't timed out, it just automatically logs me in without having to do, go through any process. But now if I go to getting my account name, or actually my account group name, it's going to have me as a developer, because that is now the top one on the list. And so it literally just goes from top to bottom. So that's important to keep in mind. If you have users who have multiple groups, it'll pick whichever one's the top one for them. All right, so this is pretty much the process that you would go through to create a Keycloak authentication in FileMaker. This is at this point, I would consider this completed for 99% of our projects. Do we have any questions on this process? Anything that you'd like me to go over more in detail before I move on to some, I'll call it extra credit stuff?
Do you have to have them go to a specific link to have that dialogue come up to log in, or does it give them a choice of OAuth through Keycloak? I mean, what gets them to that point where their login is not their local FileMaker login, or their Claris ID login, or 10 other logins that may belong to that person?
So it's by when they So when they are opening the app
Uh-huh.
and they click this, this is basically taking them to Keycloak.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
this button is what's doing that. So you could have, if I wanted to, you could have an Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. You could have all those things in here, and allow for a user to use any of those methods to log in. And you just have to make sure that on the FileMaker side it accounts for that.
Cool.
But we're using Keycloak here.
Yeah.
And so this button with obviously all of these instructions is what is allowing. I want to figure out why this space right there.
Yeah. So that
I'll-
FileMaker dialog itself is what gets changed
Yeah, exactly.
by all
And
this
so-
stuff. Cool.
Yep. So all of this setup plus that button is what allows you to use Keycloak. So we go back in there, and now it should give us here we go. Here's our little Connecticut logo, and log in. And you can see how it says login here. And I like to use login because I think that's, pretty simple. But you could have this say Keycloak. And then if we come in here, it'll say Keycloak. And now if we've decided, you know what, we're done with people logging in through FileMaker, we can open up that file and go in here and file options and uncheck this box. And now when users try to log into this file, they don't have a choice. It's this. It's going to force them to log in through Keycloak.
Great. Thank
And-
you.
Very welcome. Any other questions?
Does
before we move on to-
Keycloak provide for any other authenticators besides the big three? Like there's another one that the TSA uses, and I can't think of its name right now.
They allow for a ton. So
They do. Oh, it's okay.
these
I
are
didn't
all
see
the
that
ones
list.
that they allow for. Yeah, so and I've only ever used Google, but because that's what we Keylogic uses, but they allow for a number of these different things, a number of these different options. And I think some of these, like I think these two are literally like kind of open source where you can select what you want to use. So these are kind of the providers that are probably the more common ones that they already have set up. And then kind of similar to Claris Connect, where they have the connectors already set, but if the connector doesn't exist, you can create your own webhook. This would be a similar situation, I would assume, up here. So one of the problems that people who use Google as their authenticator have is if you go in here and you Mint Security and you select Google and add a new user, you can't choose groups, right? You're stuck with users.
Individual names.
Yeah, you'd have to create. So pretty much now with Google, you have to create an individual user. Every single user has to be added in here, which kind of defeats most of the purpose of external authentication. I mean, you do get the two-factor authentication possibility and people only needing one password, but you still need an administrator to come in here and create a new account. Now, Microsoft, as an alternative, allows you to do the users and the groups. And obviously we saw that Custom OAuth allows you to do the users and the groups like we have set up. So what we've done at Keylogic is we use Google for our authentication, and we find that Google works well for us, but we don't want to have to add new users into FileMaker every time that we create a new user. So we're using Keycloak to manage our users, and then in FileMaker, we just have those same exact groups that I just set up there. So I'm going to show you guys how you would go through that process with Google, because that's probably a pretty common situation. Because it's a lot easier to manage users in Keycloak than it is to manage them in FileMaker. So I'm going to send you all another link, which is from our friend Jason Wood, who's done a few presentations in here, and he actually showed this to us a while back. And I'm going to follow his instructions for installing, for adding Google as an identity provider for Keycloak and FileMaker. So I'm going to select Google here, and it's going to open up this screen. This is the last time we're going to touch this screen for a little while. Then we're going to go to the Google Cloud console page. I'm going to take this and put it on a different screen. And in order to use this, you have to have like an organization with Google. If you just have like a simple, Justin@google.com, it won't work. You need to have your own organization through Google. Similarly with Microsoft or any of these other providers. So I'm going to create a new project. And again, I'm just following the instructions from Jason. I'm going to call this the CFDG test demo. You can see where, it showed the organization of Keologic. And if I was managing multiple organizations, I could, select which one from there, but obviously I'm just doing it for us. So we want to go to credentials, and where I'm in the wrong group. I need to go to this new group that we just created. And we're going to configure the consent screen. And this is the screen that is going to show up in Google when you first log in. So I set that up, you select internal, app name, we're going to call this the CFDG. Support email, I'm just going to choose an email address for it. Here's where you can actually add, if you wanted to, add your own logo in here. I'm going to skip this for now, but you could add your own logo and it would show up in the consent screen. And then finally, in authorized domains, this is where you want to do whatever the domain of Keycloak is. You want to just take the actual domain and not including the subdomain from it. So if this was OAuth.google.com, it would be google.com that I would use. But clearly this is Keologic.com. So that's what I'm going to select there. And I'm going to just add my email address. Save and continue that, and then just save and continue this next screen. And we're done there. Now we're going to go into credentials, and we're going to create a new credentials. We're going to select OAuth client ID. Application type is a web application. Call this again the CFDG. And we're going to select an authorized URI. And this is where we come back here. And here, we're going to copy this URI from Keycloak and paste it in here and create. It says it takes about 5 minutes to happen, but it actually happens very quickly. We're going to, and it gives you a client ID and a client secret, which we're going to copy in here. So those are the only steps you need to do. I'm going to download this file. Those are the only steps you need to take in Google. And now we're doing everything else in Keycloak. So we have this file. And we're going to paste in the client ID, which is here. Into Keycloak, we're going to paste the client secret, which is here. Now we don't need this file anymore. And we just want to select trust email to on. And that's everything that we need. And save. Now, in authentication, we want to select flows, around flows, first broker login, and I'm gonna go to confirm link existing account and disable that. So now if you log in again, and so I'm actually going to show you all that. First, I'm going to log myself out, which is actually a pretty cool feature. Now, if I go to log in, it's not, FileMaker only does authenticating at the point of login. Once you're in the file, you're in the file. And then the only way that you can kick somebody out is through the admin console. So now if I go back and relog into the file, it's going to ask me again. And when I go to Keycloak, now I have the option of logging in through Keycloak or logging in through Google. So this time I'm going to select to log in through Google. And you have my account. And if we added the logo, it would show up here, but we didn't. So I'll select myself. And it asks you again to verify your email address because they consider this as another account. So I'm just going to go into Google. And again, you don't have to select to required to verify. That was something that I selected when I created the user. That's an optional thing. Definitely not necessary. So now I've logged into the file through Google, through Keycloak, through Google. So as you saw, I had to click that Google button in order to go to Google. So it was an additional click. If you have an organization where you have maybe some users who are using Google and some users who don't have an account in your Google organization, so you want them to log in straight through Keycloak, that's a good option for you because now you give them the option of both. You give them the option of logging in directly through Keycloak or logging in through Google. In my organization, I want everybody to log in through Google. I don't want them to even see that Keycloak is even what they're logging into. And Keycloak gives you that ability. So going back into authentication, we are going to select browser and this actions button. We're going to click on that and configure that. And here we can just say, go directly to Google. It doesn't matter what you say here. The important thing is that you put Google in here. And now I'm going to go back and log myself out again. Now, if you open up the app, you click this button, it logs you in directly through Google. So it gives you a seamless experience where you don't even realize that you're logging in, you're even going through Keycloak. Now, you still have to create the users in Keycloak. Even if they exist in Google, if a user exists in Google but they don't exist in Keycloak, this is going to fail. It's not going to find anybody because it's not going to find you because it's only looking for these lists of users, through these email addresses. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, that you still have to, no matter what in this way of doing things, you have to manage your users through Keycloak. But it gives you the users the ability to log in through a different source. And the main reason, there are a number of reasons why, but basically what is happening is when you click that button, FileMaker is going to Keycloak, and Keycloak is then going to Google. So then Google's authenticating and sending its authentication back to Keycloak, and then Keycloak is looking at that and saying, do any of my users match that? Yes, that's the user. I'm going to send that back to FileMaker, and then FileMaker is saying, do any of my users match that? Yes or no. So that's kind of if you want to look at the flow of that login process. All right, and that is it. That is the presentation. Any questions, comments?
Yes. Let me see if I can phrase this correctly.
Sure.
I understand that you're going through the Google Authenticator, which is fine, but left unsaid, but I get the implication is that it's all has to be tied to the same Google Master account. So if I do unfortunately have a situation where for this organization, different countries have different Google Master accounts. I can't get all of the users into one of them.
No. But you can use Keycloak. You could use Keycloak as the source and just not touch Google at all. You don't need to go
Okay, and
Google.
have everybody just in Keycloak.
Just in Keycloak, yes. And that would still, Keycloak gives you the same level of security, which is, I mean, there's two reasons why you do this. One is for the ease of, or I guess three, for the ease of the users, for the ease of the developer or the IT person, and for security. Keycloak gives you all three of those things without having to go through Google. It requires that the user now has to remember a new set of passwords, a new password. But a nice thing about Keycloak as compared to FileMaker is if the user forgets their password, they can click that forgot password button.
Right.
They don't need to bother you. And so, I mean, how many times have we had to go into a database just to reset somebody's password? It's the really annoying process. This
Right.
eliminates that. It also allows you to have that two-factor authenticator using the OTPs. So it gives you using like the Google Authenticator is what I use, but you don't have to use Google Authenticator. You can use Authy Authenticator. I think Derek has used like the keychain on your iPhone. Just any authenticator app that has those like 6-digit key will work.
Okay, that answers that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say if you're going to do this, go the Keycloak route and skip the Google process.
In practice, have you found it to be pretty responsive, or does it occasionally get slow?
It's great. It works perfectly. I have not had an issue. Yeah. And it's definitely, it saves time for us. Instead of having to remember your password, put it all in there. And then if you have a database with, if you have a system with 10 different databases, or 30 different databases, having to go into each database to you have a new employee, you have to go and add them to all 30 databases. None of that anymore. Add them one time to Keycloak and they're good to go.
Last question is, are there any gotchas with using the data API? Which basically
no,
has to log into the server.
Well, the data API, I would use a FileMaker account for that. I wouldn't use an OAuth account for the data API.
Oh, and you can use a combination of the authenticators and a hardwired account in FileMaker. I've not
Yes.
tried that. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go back into that file and I'll show you. So and as you can see here, I have it set up so that this automatically shows up, but it doesn't have to automatically show up. If I go into the file and click that file options and check this.
I think you need to share your screen.
Yeah, we can't see the
Sorry.
screen. It looks nice to you.
So going back into that file, and I went in and checked that box I was showing before. I can log in if I want to, just straight using FileMaker.
Oh, okay.
I must have spelled it incorrectly. There we go. And so now I'm logged in as a direct FileMaker user.
Okay.
So you can do either way. Unlike with Claire's Connect or FileMaker Cloud, where you lose the ability to log in as a regular FileMaker user. With this, you have that ability to still log in as a regular FileMaker user if you want.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, so this was kind of the part 2 of installing Keycloak and getting it working. I would say part 1 of the process is probably the more daunting task for everybody, which is actually creating the Linux server and doing the installation steps in Linux. If you'd like, next month or in September, we can actually go through that process of showing you how to actually create the Ubuntu server, install all of the things that it takes to install in order to actually create a Keycloak server. Is that something that would interest everybody?
I would,
Yeah.
if it's on an AWS server, I'd be very interested, or an AOS installation as opposed to one of your local machines.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I would be doing it through AWS.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But I want to point out that this presentation was the first one where I said, I got it. I understand the why. I don't know all the hows, but you provided some great examples. But this is the why that I think a lot of people need before they start struggling through that first part going, why am I doing? And you go, well,
Yeah.
here's why. So this is really important. So don't call it part 2. Call it, you know, the sequel
Well,
or the sequel before the prequel or something like
yeah.
that. Prequel before the sequel.
Yeah, exactly. This is Star Wars Part 4, and now we're gonna go through parts 1 through 3.
Right,
Um,
right. So yeah, so this was really, like I said, this was the first time I kind of got the why this is done. The ease of changes stuff also was a plus. And it got me, okay, that's great. And now I know I need to go back and I've got the difficult part, but I can understand why I want to do that so I can get to the easy part, which is really going to be flexible in a lot of places.
Yeah,
So,
and
thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And I really have to credit Duncan Baker and Jason Wood for putting together some really great instructions. Duncan's instructions specifically are like literally just copy and paste, follow the sheet, do exactly what they say, and it'll work.
Yeah.
So I must say those instructions, maybe print them out, store them somewhere, because when you actually get started in the process, it'll make just following those instructions makes it pretty simple as opposed to complicated. Especially the process I went through today, as you saw, everything was just using a user interface. You know, there was no real coding going on. It was all just, you know, checking, knowing which boxes to check.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Cool. So, talking about next month, today's the 27th. We kind of have gotten a little bit off cadence. I think we had the CFDG pushed back a couple of weeks, a couple of times. This past time because there was the auto enter live at the same time as the CFDG. What are your thoughts on getting the next CFDG for the 17th of August, and kind of getting ourselves back in cadence of the mid-month CFDGs? Any thoughts on that, or?
What time would it be? Same time here?
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So far, I think I'm okay on that.
That's okay with me too, but not later. I have a 6 o'clock.
Okay, yeah. 4 o'clock seems to be a good time for us.
Yeah.
So we'll do the 17th for 4 o'clock. And I'd like to kind of fill the circle of this and do the process where we actually create the AWS instance and do the Linux portion of this part, because I have a feeling that you guys are probably looking at this and saying that was kind of complicated, and the Linux part I'm like a little bit more scared of and don't really know what to do there. So I'd like to kind of break that as well, so we can all feel comfortable going and creating this for ourselves or for our clients.
You're gonna need to record that too.
Yeah, that would be
That'll
great.
definitely get recorded. All right,
That
cool.
would be good. Good.
And we'll make sure to update the link, or I don't know how this works with Meetup, because it's an open group. So if somebody wants to join it, then they get access to that Zoom link. And it seems like these people are coming into these Zoom links and then deciding that they want to, yell profanities into or play a video in the middle of these meetups. I don't really understand what they're trying to get at, besides just annoying other people. I guess that's what they're trying to do, is just annoy other people.
Yeah, I think some of the other groups will send it out through their listserv only the day of the event, so that it's unique.
Right.
And so you got, not only do you have to register, but you have to be a member of the listserv, and that really helps. But it's a pain, but
Yeah, that also brings up an additional challenge of having making sure that everybody who wants to attend the group is part of the listserv, because we want to have as broad of an audience as possible.
right.
Well, I'm going to do some chatting with some other people who run groups like this and see what they've been doing. But that may be the direction we have to go. You might be right, Beverly.
So FM Disc got hacked, Dig FM, I don't think so. But there were a couple other groups that I attended that got Zoom bombed. And it wasn't just Zoom, so it's not, I mean, it's a public link that people are getting somehow.
Right.
Well, it's on the Meetup site,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's anybody can go on there and just copy it.
Well,
Basically.
on the meetup sites where I've seen it, it doesn't appear until you click the attend and
Yeah, but anybody
join
can
the
do that.
group, but
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure these guys went and did that though, because anybody can do that.
yeah.
So I don't know if, we'll figure that out for next time. But anyway, I'll go ahead and after this is done, send the link out for this video so you all can download the recording of it. Everybody's on the listserv for the CFDG, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Did you happen to record the last session, which I unfortunately didn't get to?
I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't even remember what we did. Does anybody remember what we did last session?
I think it was an OAuth.
No,
Either that or data tables.
maybe it was. Oh yes, Derek did some data table stuff, and also Oliver had a presentation on something I forgot what.
Oh, okay.
But no,
Then it
I think we
changed from what
forgot.
it was originally going to be. Okay.
Yeah, that's possible. So yeah, let's go ahead and do part. I'll call it the prequel of today's session next month, and then we can decide next month whether we want to do have Claris come in and talk to us about their new programs in September.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Yeah, I was
All
at
right.
the Michigan group last night and she didn't have any information, but she said, watch out, that they are trying to announce more information on the problem solver circle, the Claris studio itself, upgrades, things like that. They're trying to really get the word out to as many people as they can. So
Yeah, I think they're coming out or they're going live with it either tomorrow, either this week or next week with their new plan. So I'm sure we'll all get, bombed with emails from them about the new plan.
Right, right. But not everybody gets that email, and so I think they're trying to reach the user group because it may have an audience that isn't on the normal, Claris
Yep, that's
community
definitely
or
possible.
email list, so.
Yep.
Very cool.
right.
I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Thanks everybody, and have a great Wednesday, and we'll speak next month.
See you in August.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.